whether the protection, the legal protection, the protection of public authorities initiates, whether it is with birth of a child or whether it is before birth. And within this, somehow one may say that the competence of public authorities to regulate access to abortion is decided. It is not for the international forum, it is not for the global community, it is not for the European Union, it is for the member states.
This is Common Sense Generation. Common Sense Generation. Hi guys, this is Common Sense Generation. I'm Kądzielska-Koper, and today we want to talk about common sense family. With me is Professor Dobrochna Bach-Golecka, the lawyer from the Warsaw Faculty of Law and the director of Canon Law Center. Yes. Thank you very much for coming.
Yes, thank you very much for the invitation.
Madam, you focus very much on women's rights, on feminism, and also on family. When we look right now, it seems like a bad time for families in Europe. We are a society in Western world very much directed into profit, into measurable wealth, into careers, and in all of this, putting a family in. I remember there are some German studies that showing that first child declines the level of life of a family of 50%, another one of something. So, of course, it seems ridiculous from a perspective of a parent, but definitely it is a moment when a lot of headlines in newspapers are showing that you can have animals and pets instead of having children. How does it look from a more lawyer's perspective?
Well, from a common sense perspective, family starts as a relationship between a female and a male. So the classic notion of marriage, living apart from various partnerships, pacts. Marriage is a relationship between a woman and a man, which starts in a formal promise within marriage, which is a private union between themselves, but somehow with a social impact. And when one looks into the definition of marriage, it is a union between a female and a male, one male and one female, in order to practice love. So marriage is a starting point. It is not something that is declared and something that may not be taken care of, but the family relationship, the marriage relationship is a dynamic one. And somehow one may say that in the public discourse it is absent. It's like in the fairy tales. There is a wedding and they lived happily ever after. There is nothing about dynamics of the relationship, of love relationship. There is nothing about ups and downs. There is nothing about the need to cultivate love, the change of love. So various movements that somehow are oriented towards supporting marriages are directed in order to help marriages to overcome those hardships. The romantic love, which is the start of a relationship, of a marriage, but somehow in order to be stable, in order to be mature, it has to be different one. It has to change, and somehow it is a difficult point for couples to understand that marriage is not based on a romantic love. It starts with romantic love, but then it changes. I am a fan of the Bridgerton's series, and somehow one may say that it is based on this pursuit of love, the romantic love, but then it is marriage that has to be cultivated, that has to be taken care of.
Well, I'm surprised that definitely the Bridgertons, even though fantasized and very colorized, it at least still cultivate and show the beauty and the importance of family and of marriage to the public sphere, even in times when it's not that popular. And And when we have such examples of developed countries which become childless, which, or even we know in Japan, there is huge amount of young people in their 30s who never been in a relationship with a real person. For example, have viral boyfriends or girlfriends. We know, as you mentioned before, the South Korea with a very low childbirth, but also in this demographic problem, but there's also the problem of course, a social problem that that it's hard for us to still cultivate traditional marriages, which after all require this decision that even when I dislike the other person at this point, because I still made this decision to be with her or with him, and I'm not giving up this decision on my whim. And this is something definitely with most of the fairy tales sort of avoid.
Well, what I may say is that the contemporary culture is based on ego, on the development and self-fulfillment of a person's ego, and certain unwillingness to engage in relations. But once one is convinced about the importance of relations, once one wants to start a relationship, it is the issue of making up a decision, starting a relationship, engaging in marriage, and then engaging in family once the offspring comes. And it is the issue of love, of searching love, of making a decision of will in order to escape, to get out from the sphere of comfort of having a single relationship with oneself, and coming into the other person and being willing to open oneself to the other person, to share one's life with the other person, and to start the relationship for life. It is the total relation, open relationship, and reciprocal relationship. And it is very beautiful. It is the relationship of love. So somehow it is love that one may search for and find in marriage and in family.
And then we have, of course, the question of children. That it is right now, as you mentioned, the ego and the fact that very often our society seeks this immortality more in our actions. So we create a great company or write a great book or achieve something in sport, and that's how we somehow touch the form of immortality that we will be remembered by the generations. But the obvious form of immortality for human being as a species is having progeny, is having infants and having children who outlive our life, and which life starts, and the timeline of this life is longer than our own. How the common sense look at having children?
Well, the common sense stipulates that having children is, one may say, the fulfillment of a human activity, in the sense of bringing new life to the earth, somehow a divine action in order to producing, one may say in quotas, a child, a new life, a new human being that was absent before. But on the other hand, it stipulates that it is a very difficult process, that it is a risky business, full of hardship, of suffering. But as I said, only the activities which are difficult but are with sense brings happiness to life. With children, the issue is difficult because one is not certain about the result, in the sense that the parents may engage in the upbringing of children, but the children are free. They are autonomous. They have not come to the world in order to fulfill the wishes of the parents. They are the new human beings who are free and autonomous, and somehow the task of the parents is to take care of a child up till the adulthood, and then to let the child go and to let the children live their life as they want to. And it is a very difficult process. Very beautiful, but very difficult.
And here we come to a controversial aspect of the fact that it is our life who goes through us, but it's, I state on the statement that it is actually not our, the life is not given by us. The process goes through us, the process of pregnancy, of giving birth, but just the miracle of life is something which is absolutely divine and somehow should be protected. And we of course have the case of abortions, where we have a conflict of two values. One value is the value of life as itself, and the other value is value of freedom and a value of choices of women or of human beings, free choices. In this conflict of values, especially when right now in modern life we value the freedom to such extent that very often we see it as an ultimate value, abortion becomes, in many Western countries, as a form of anti-conception, to such extent that when we count the amount of people who could be born but were not born, it looks like a genocide.
Well, one may say that in the legal terms, humans are based on human dignity, in the sense that there is something absolute in every human person, and because of this human dignity, everyone is equal. Every human person is equal, and every human person is to be protected. The life and well-being of that person is to be protected. Every human person is free, and within the family issues, within the offspring issues, one may stipulate the concept of reproductive rights, in the sense that it is up to the couple to decide if they want to have children, how many children they want to have, what should be the time span between the children. So it is certain decision that requires certain planning and requires certain reflection. It is to be undertaken out of love. The family is based, the marriage should be based on love, and family giving birth to children should be based on love. And abortion in this issue, but also using contraception, is somehow the failure of love, in the sense that love should be total, love should be open, one should be open to the well-being of the other person, and using contraception is somehow I love you, but not totally. The love is not so open, is not so total, I have certain reservation and certain limits. But the abortion issue is the other aspect, in the sense that within the abortion there is a female and male and a child. And it is a human being, it is a person which is endowed with human dignity and is endowed with the right to life. And the parents, they do not have a right to kill their babies, even if they change their mind, even if they are not happy that the child is going to be born. Somehow the idea of human rights is based on the protection of those who are the most weak, in a most vulnerable situation, and the babies are, the unborn babies are, one may say, the outmost example of the human being which is in the most vulnerable situation and which should be in the outmost protected. And one may say in the majority of cases, it is for female, it is for male, it is for the parents, for the couple to take care of their babies, to protect them, to be responsible for their offspring. But in some situations, the issue of abortion is a failure of love, is a failure of responsibility.
And how does it look from a legal perspective? When we look, let's start with Europe. How does it look from a legal perspective in Europe, the case of abortion?
From the legal perspective, one may say that within the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, within the issue of certain human rights treaties, there was a debate whether to stipulate precisely that the right to life starts with conception, or whether the right to life starts with birth of a child. And because of the tension between the member states, the treaty's provisions are open, or one may say, I termed it as flexible provisions, in the sense that they stipulate the right to life of people, of a human person, but it is to the member state to decide whether the protection, the legal protection, the protection of public authorities initiates, whether it is with birth of a child or whether it is before birth. And within this, somehow one may say that the competence of public authorities to regulate access to abortion is decided. It is not for the international forum, it is not for the global community, it is not for the European Union, it is for the member states. And one looks into the European Union, the European Court of Justice in the 1990s issued a statement, issued a judgment in the Grogan case, in the Irish case that was initiated by the Society for the Protection of Unborn Children against Grogan, which was a representative of students in Ireland who wanted to issue some leaflets concerning the possibility to perform abortion in the United Kingdom. In Ireland, at that time, the protection of life in the prenatal phase was valid on the constitutional sphere, whereas in the United Kingdom, the protection of life was less developed. And the court stipulated that abortion may be termed as a service within the provision of the European Union law and the provision of the common market norms concerning the free movement of services, but according to domestic law. So it is for the member state to decide whether to allow, prohibit, restrict, or limit abortion, and it is not for the European Union, it is not for the European Court to decide. And somehow this judgment in Grogan case is an example of a self-restraint of the European Court, stipulating that it is not for the court, it is not for the judges to decide abortion, because somehow judges are undemocratic. They are not legitimized to make such an important decision. This important decision, according to the judges, should be made on a domestic level, but once again, not by the judges, but by the parliaments within the democratic principles, because it is for the society to have certain opinions, certain values.
How
and
generous.
Those values are then enshrined in the members of parliament who are representatives of the people. And they have to decide whether they want to protect prenatal life, or whether they want to allow the performance of abortion, and those decisions are valid for the particular member states. And because of this, we have now in the European Union the differences concerning the access to abortion written down to the constitution in France, and the protection of life in Poland up till the protection of gravely ill children with disabilities. But similar phenomena is, for instance, connected to other morally controversial issues like prostitution, like usage of certain pornographic materials, access to alcohol, a very restricted policy, for instance, in the Scandinavian countries, usage of aggressive materials, access which is prohibited in Germany. So there is this differentiation and this scope of certain, one may say, freedom for the member states to cultivate their decisions, which are morally sensitive.
How generous of the European Court to give us this freedom.
Yes, it is very generous, and I must say it is one of the most remarkable decisions of the European Court, which was issued in the 1990s and which was followed 32 years afterwards in the United States, because the Dobbs decisions, which was undertaken in 2022, concerned, one may say, the same issue. It concerned not primarily whether the right to abortion is written down in the American Constitution, but rather it stipulated who is going to make a decision. And somehow the debate in the United States between the pro-choice and pro-life movement was not primarily or was not totally connected to the abortion issue, but one may say it was a democratic movement. It was a movement of the people in order, we want to decide, we want democratically to decide this issue and not the judges of the Supreme Court. Because in the Roe and Wade in the 1970s, it was the supremacy of the judges of the Supreme Court of the United States to decide this issue on themselves and not listening to the people. And the decision in the Dobbs case reflected the European Court decision in the sense stipulating the level of decision-making for regulating abortion is, in the first place, it is not a court, it is a parliament. And it is not a parliament, the federal government, but it is the state government. So it is up to political community of a particular state, even the federal state and the federal states of the United States, to decide. And once again,
so
we
the
have
rules
differences.
So the rules in the United States differ state to state?
Yes, similarly as to the European Union. And it is up to the people to decide. And it is up to us to decide how we want to regulate this issue, whether we want to protect those most vulnerable or whether we would allow their killing, their destruction, their elimination.
But of course there is one thing is law, the other thing is implementation of it, and a sort of certain cultural aspects how things are done. Because on one hand, even the law can be very liberal on certain levels, but the practice or the culture of people could be much more restricted. But what we see and we observe, especially in such countries as United Kingdom or US, when there exist special companies such as Planned Parenthood, who are forms of controlling of the population, especially the Black population, with a special promotion and programs giving them ability for very easy forms of abortion. That it is extremely easy to access. It is subsidized by the government very often. And it is also culturally widely accepted and not debated. In this case, that there are women who it is normal that, for example, women in UK have 2-3 abortions in life.
What I would say is that this issue of abortion is subject to public debate in the sense of its opposition to women's rights, in the sense that abortion should be seen as a failure, as a situation which is opposite to women's rights. No one wishes a young girl to have abortions, wishes a young girl, for instance, to be happy, to follow education, to get a job, to get married, to have children if she wants to with her partner or husband. Yes, no one wishes the girl to have abortions. It is the abortion is always a sign of a certain failure, of a mother being left alone with no assistance, no protection. When I was reading the medical record concerning pregnancy, the most fundamental medical problems as far as pregnancy is concerned is obesity, which is quite normal because the child is growing, but also it is anxiety. So somehow a young mother, a female expecting a child, is not very self-confident person. She's full of certain hesitations, full of anxiety, and somehow she needs to be taken care of. She needs some assistance. And when one looks into the judgment of the Polish Constitutional Court, which was issued in 2022 concerning the prohibition of abortion on eugenic purposes, it is the final statement of the tribunal of the court is very interesting for me because it stipulates the principle of solidarity. The principle of solidarity means that we are responsible for one another. We are responsible for a mother expecting a child if her husband, her partner, if the father of the child leaves the female, leaves the mother, it is up to the family to take care of her. It is up to the local government to take care of her according to decentralization principle. But within the Polish tradition, when one looks into solidarity movement of the 1980s, one of the points that the workers at the yard in Gdańsk, and I'm from Gdańsk too, and it is very important to me, there were points that were connected to the assistance to mothers as far as the upbringing of children is concerned. So somehow we have to show this solidarity, and the instance of executed abortion in many cases and an instance of unsolidarity, of certain indifference to the needs of a young mother, of a mother expecting a child. And there is a need to develop not only the public social assistance schemes, but also private ones. I spoke to Mary Ann Glendon, the professor of Harvard University and the American representative of the Holy See, to the Beijing conference. And she told me that she was, throughout her life, very active in private circles, protecting life, giving speeches in various private surroundings, that she founded an organization that was pro-life and against poverty. So somehow this connection between poverty and abortion is recognized in the sense that women in vulnerable situation, they do not need access to abortion. They need assistance, they need protection, but not in words, but in action. They need money, they need protection, certain safe and stable and reliable situation for them and for their children. And what happened, for instance, in Poland is an example of Teresa Strzembosz. There was a triplet birth in the 1930s in Warsaw of Strzembosz children, so two boys and one girl. One boy, Adam Strzembosz, was the Supreme Judge of the, was the Chief of the Supreme Court. Tomasz Strzembosz was the historian, and Teresa Strzembosz was a nurse, and she was very active in the pro-life movement. And she was a devout Catholic. She was assisted by the blessed Prymas Wyszyński, and she convinced female monasteries in order to help women in need, pregnant women in need. So monasteries, female monasteries, they opened their houses and they created houses for single mothers, and they accepted females expecting children in order to give birth to children and to spend 1 year after birth within those monasteries. Very gracious offer, and it is being practiced up till now. And I think that it is what we need. It is what we need that in order to stop killing unborn children, we have to develop solidarity. We have to be sensitive to the needs of a human person, of our neighbor.
I think that actually Poland is also a great example of a practice of the window of life.
Yes.
Which for some might be controversial, but there is the window of life which is very often next to the hospitals or churches, that a woman or anyone who has a child, a parent, can give give up this child there without any legal consequences. Either with giving information about this child or not, but within 30 days, when he or she gives up this child there, then it is sent to be for adoption, and the person is also giving up their rights as parents for this child. But a form of saving a life of children for parents in desperate conditions, who, for example, cannot take care of them, but still they want to give the chance for the child to live. Which in a way is extremely beautiful. That there are some options. There is such an option, and it is autonomous and doesn't come with any form of, let's say, public ostracism, or because I haven't seen a case where identity of a parent came into public.
Yes, it is one of the smart solutions, one would say, like the anonymous labor in Germany. So, for instance, the possibility to give birth to a child to create certain comfortable situation for a mother to give birth to a child and then to leave a child for adoption. The problem with the windows of life is the identity issue, in the sense that the children that were left there, they may want to know the identity, the biological identity of their parents. But the concept is very positive in the sense of creating certain methods of solution of a difficult situation. And one may say that also the European Commission has somehow engaged in various strategies in order to help families and children, and somehow children with disabilities. One may think of the recently adopted strategy for the development of the rights of children, and then the strategy, the program adopted at the level of the European Union in order to protect people with disabilities. And quite recently, the European Commission had adopted a strategy concerning the protection and the program to focus on people who provide care. And while it is very, one may say, neutral, 90% of people who provide care are females. So somehow this is the program that is oriented towards females in order to alleviate their situation, in order not to push them into the private sphere, which is non-paid, which is based on those altruistic values, but somehow to make their position as the care providers a bit more protected and assisted, in the sense that when we look into the activity of caregiving, one should also always have in mind that a human person starts as a human person that needs care, then as a child, then as an adult person, we may provide care, and in the elderly stage, once again, we need care. So somehow this issue of family and care, empathy, is very connected, and it is worthwhile to think of and more importantly, to practice it.
And it seems to be inseparable also from development in the society, because we in the society have children and we have elderly, and without children there will be no future generations. So if we look into the future, we see the family. This was Dobrochna Bach-Golecka, the professor of law at Warsaw University, on Common Sense Generation. Thank you very much for watching our show, and I also thank Polish National Foundation for making this video podcast possible.
This is Common Sense Generation.